Hello, my name is Dan Skip Allen, and this is Bleacher Features, where not my friend, but well, a lot of my friends. So, a guest, myself and a guest discuss a sports movie, and a lot of the times it's a movie that they suggest to me, and I just happen to like the movie. So this time around, it's a young lady from back home where I come from, Paige Frabetti. Paige, welcome to Bleacher Features, and thank you for suggesting Miracle.
Oh man, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. I mean, I grew up playing hockey my whole life, so if I had to choose any sports movie, I mean, why not choose one of the best ones ever created? So,
Yeah, and from a director, Gavin O'Connor, that I've come to really respect a lot over the last couple decades. He's made some amazing, amazing films.
I know I totally agree. I mean, he doesn't have the largest resume, but the movies he has made, especially this one that came out in 2004, is the
Yeah,
one to go. Is the one that you need to check out first out of all of his films, I think.
yeah. Once you see this one, then you see I already did an episode on Warrior last year, on last
Okay.
year's series of Bleacher Features, and probably eventually I'll do the Way Back. Cause
Yeah.
I really really enjoyed the Way Back. So probably we might end up getting all of Gavin O'Connor sports movies on the Bleacher Features. So who knows?
I think it's
But
a must. So,
yeah. I mean, the guy obviously knows how to make a sports movie.
that is for damn sure.
Yeah. So this is the thing. I always start off with the cast and the crew and so forth. So let's get into the cast. A lot of nobodies in
Mhm.
this cast. A couple people you may know, and one actual celebrity who plays himself. Kurt Russell, obviously, as Herb
Mel
Brooks.
Brooks.
Eddie Cahill as Jim Craig. Patricia Clarkson as Patty Brooks. Michael Menudo as Jack O'Callahan, Noah Emmerich as Craig Patrick, Nathan West as Rob McClanahan, Patrick O'Brien Dempsey as Mike Eruzione, Kenneth Mitchell as Ralph Cox, Kenneth Welch as Doc Naga, whatever the heck this Doc is. He had a weird last name. So Doc, I'm just going to call him Doc. Um, Sean McCann as Walter Bush, Eric Peter Kaiser as Mark Johnson, Al Michaels as himself. We'll get into him. You can't not talk about Miracle without talking about Al Michaels.
Mhm.
Billy Schneider as Buzz Schneider, Pete Duffy as Rob Sutter, Joseph Cure as Mike Ramsey, Chris Koch as Mark Pavlich. Obviously, we just mentioned directed by Gavin O'Connor, screenplay by Eric Guggenheim, Mike Rich, and score by Mark Isham. You got anything to say about the cast and any the director or anything like that?
I mean, honestly, like coming from, I'll start with director. I mean, we already kind of touched upon it a little bit, but Gavin O'Connor, man, I mean, I thought he was a great choice. I think a lot of people would have thought he was like a nobody at first to choose from him. But man, what he brought from this film, especially that Miracle is one of the true sports movies that's actually depicted pretty spot on in a sense, not itemized at all in a sense. Like it's pretty straightforward on the story itself. And the fact that he was able to bring it to the screen is just like, to me, it's like, I don't know, I'm a huge hockey girl. I grew up playing hockey my whole life. So for me, like seeing it on the big screen, it brings I mean, obviously I wasn't there in the 80s when it happened, but to be able to like relive those moments through the big screen was like one of the most like emotional and crazy feelings to have as like a hockey fan in a sense.
Yeah, no, I completely. When you if you're an American, which you and I are, it really gives you the feels about how patriotic you are if you, once you watch this film and you realize how important this was for Americans.
Yeah,
The Olympics as a whole, a lot of these countries, this is their whole because they don't have the NBA and the NHL and the MLB.
exactly.
Yeah, they have might some of the countries might have some baseball or some basketball or some hockey, but it's not like to the extent of our country. And so the Olympics is like a huge deal to them, specifically some of these Eastern Bloc countries.
Oh yeah. And I think that's when like hockey comes in big time because I mean hockey's pretty big in Europe, but the only like professional teams are the NHL, which is in America and in Canada. So
Yeah, absolutely. So the greats always come over here to play,
exactly.
but they go back to play for their country.
When it comes to the Olympics.
Yep. So yeah, but and we'll get into some of these people like Noah Emmerich. You know, he's been around. He plays assistant coach Craig and Al Michaels. Obviously, you know him, but we'll get into talking about that later on. We got a long way to go before we get to that. But yeah, so the movie starts out with some archival footage of war demonstrations, Nixon, computers, Apollo 17, video games, disco, Gerald Ford, the bicentennial, 3 Mile Island explosion, and then eventually Jimmy Carter. So they're trying to tell you the time period of when this was going on, like in the late 70s, early 80s, what was happening in this country and why this was so important by having that archival footage at the beginning credits.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that was the biggest thing was that it was in the middle of the Cold War. So we already had this huge beef with Russia in a sense. So that's what made it more surreal. And I'm pretty sure the last time that the US had won the Olympics, the hockey championship was in the 60s. So we were on a 20-year hiatus and we needed to start to make something happen because Russia and all the other European teams were coming in hot and we were not looking too good. So
no, they passed us by. You're absolutely right. So let's get into this. We're in Colorado Springs in 1979, the U.S. Olympic Training Facility. Herb Brooks introduces himself, and like I said, Herb Brooks, played by Kurt Russell, and his new system to the men at the Olympic Committee. Okay, so then they hear once the meeting's over, he goes back home and he hears on the news that the NHL All-Stars failed to beat the Soviets at their own game. These are the best, quote unquote, the best in the world. End up playing the Russians and they end up losing to the Russians. And that tells you how far difference the Russians are compared to our players over here in Canada and the United States.
Yeah, and that's when the big thing with Herb Brooks when he came in, like that's the big thing he wanted to do was he wanted to change the strategy and the way that we practice in a sense to show that we can compete with them and that there just had to be changes to be made. And that's why I give that coach so much credit for what he did.
Yeah. So he's back home now, back in Minnesota, because he was the coach of the Minnesota Golden Gophers at this time. And his wife, she's not concerned with all this stuff that he's concerned with. She gets him costumes of Nick and Nora Charles because she wants him to go to a costume party, which I thought that was great. You know, seriousness about coaching hockey and the Olympics and everything. Now, Nick, we're going to be Nick and Nora Charles and the dog come with us and the whole 9 yards. I was like, yeah, there you go. That breaks the tension a little bit. You know?
Exactly. It shows like the real vibe that was going on at the time. Like, got to give some human feeling to it.
Yeah. So then Herb gets a phone call while he's at the party, and he ends up getting the job as the head of the Olympic hockey team. And so he starts getting to work. He starts tryouts in Minnesota, where he's from, where he lives and works and so forth. And then we find out that there's a rivalry at the tryouts, that there's a lot of guys from Minnesota there, and then there's also a lot of guys from Boston there. And there's this hockey rivalry in college with these teams, these group of cool schools from Boston, and then obviously the Midwest teams of Minnesota, Wisconsin, North Dakota, and these two. So these guys already have a beef with each other, some of these guys that are trying out for the Olympic team.
Yeah, that was like one of the that's when it starts to get to like the nitty gritty of kind of how it was to build that team in a sense, because a bunch of the players came from all over the US and they were all rivals and stuff. And that's where Brooks had to start to make the decision, like, guys, we're a team. Like, the only way we're going to win and beat the Soviets are to become a team and play as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mike Eruzione trying to play a little more hockey. He's basically telling, he's saying, hey, man, I just want to play more hockey. That's why I'm here. These other guys have whatever is going on. I just want to play more hockey.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, that's, when you have a burgeoning career, you don't know if your career is going to go further past college or not. You take all the opportunities you can get.
Exactly.
All right, so men say Eruzione doesn't have a chance of. So some of the guys on the committee are there, and they go, "Hey, Eruzione doesn't stand a chance of making the team. Cross him off the list." I thought that was funny because it's 40 years later. We all know what happened, but
exactly,
it's funny. It's kind of funny because he's a hero and he becomes a hero. If you don't already know, Mike Eruzione is a hero of that, one of the heroes of that team, and he became a great motivational speaker in years since then. So, but yeah, so we know he ends up making the team.
Yeah, and that's what I used to always say too. Like, sometimes you don't need to be the best player on the ice to be able to make a team. I think if you have the dedication and the care and the felt, I think that brings you such more of a long way than just being the best player on the team in a sense. And I coach hockey, so that was like always my biggest thing that I would tell my players too is it's like, it's obviously great to be the best player on the ice, but if you can't work as a team and be able to guide and show that you want to grow, then you ain't going to make it.
And that's perfect segue because this is a line from Herb Brooks when somebody asks him a question. He goes, "I'm not looking for the best players. I'm looking for the right ones."
Exactly.
And I love that quote from Herb Brooks. I'm not looking for the best ones. I'm looking for the right ones. That's one of those. You're like, yeah, that's the kind of thing you want to hear.
Exactly. And he says it like later on. He says it later on in the film too. Like, you're not going to beat this team by individual players. Like, the only way you're going to win is as a team. That's the only way we're going to be able to beat them. And he realizes that. Oh, man, I wish I had him as a coach one day in my life because.
Yeah, he's great. So he ends up doing the tryout. They end up getting 26 players, and so all the other guys had to go home. But when the guys are walking out the door, he goes, "Take a good look, gentlemen. Those guys are getting off easy." He's saying to the guys that are there, they're getting off easy. You guys aren't getting off. Oh my God! You're like, oh boy.
Yeah, people. That's a lot of thing too. It's like when people make the team and stuff, they're just like, "Yeah, I made it. I'm good." Are you ready to put the hard work in? Because this is when it all starts to go down now. So
yeah. So 26 down to 20. Give 99%. It'll be easy on him. He's telling the guys, hey, if you give 99%, don't worry, you're on the team. It's some guys that don't want to work that is going to make his job harder of who he has to cut of those 6 players. So so guy tries to stop Herb from. Okay, one of the guys in the committee tries to stop Herb from leaving, says he can choose the team. He can help them choose the team. Basically saying, hey, that's what the committee's here for. We're here to help you choose the team. And Herb's like, no, I already chose the team. Says, they should have to say that he knows the coaches, the scouts. He's watched these players play. He knows the type of players he's looking for that the committee can't help him pick because he already knows what he's looking for.
Yeah, and that was like a big thing too because I'm pretty sure he was one of the players that tried out for the 1960s Olympic team, and he got cut from that. And I think that's why he's trying to prove right now that he knows the team that needs to be built, and no one's going to tell him how to do it besides him and his coaches. So
yeah. So we're at a bar. Of course, here comes the rivalry that we already discussed a little bit about the East Coast guys and the Midwest guys. And they're arguing with each other at the bar. Now we're at the Bloomington Ice Facility. We're going to practice. And the bar fight and the rivalry all comes full circle here. O'Callahan cheap shots the guy because he cheap shotted him in a game earlier, and the whole East Coast Midwest rivalry goes full circle here.
Oh yeah.
And then when these guys start fighting, the guy gets up. Coach Brooks basically says, "Don't worry, let them fight." It's like a Mortal Kombat moment. Let them fight.
Let them hash it out. Sometimes it's you just gotta need to leave it all on the ice real quick and let them settle it among themselves.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's how you get that out. It's just let guys fight it out, and just that'll finally get the frustrations and the anger and all that stuff out. Just let them fight. That's
exactly.
They don't let kids fight enough these days.
Gotta let the aggression out somehow. Yeah,
the adults need to not get in the middle sometimes. But, that's another whole thing. Then I love this line. He says it's like watching monkeys humping a football. I'm like, what the heck is monkeys humping a football? I was like, damn. These old coaches, boy, they have some funny things.
I would say I love the lingo that they used to that they still use nowadays too. It's just like, oh, what point are you trying to get across right there? But it all makes sense though when you think about it.
Yeah, and once the fight's over and everything, he says, "Okay, now you got to start becoming a team. Now that all this crap is over with, makes them start talking to each other and telling them who they are and where they're from and all this stuff." And then he says that the game's all about passing and skating and not old rivalries. And so which basically what you gotta, if you're going to win, you can't be about those old rivalries. You got to be about the game. And everything you think about is that game. That's the only way you're going to beat the Soviets when they beat the NHL players.
Yeah, there's 5 men on the ice. And if you don't all work together, you ain't going to win. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. Jim Craig won't take the test. Jim says it has nothing to do with stopping the puck. This is kind of like Jim, of all the guys, a lot of them are younger guys. Jim's a little bit older, so he's got a little bit of seasoning on him, and he's like, yeah, what does taking that test have to do with stopping the puck?
Exactly.
And of course, Herb says, you just took it. In Herb's mind, by him not taking the test, that showed Herb the type of person he was. So that might cause some problems down the line. We'll see how that goes. But also, each person, he's looking for something different in each of these guys. So that might be, by him not taking the test, that might be what he's looking for in Jim Craig. Who knows?
Yeah. I think that's a big thing with the team too, is you can't have all the same type of players. You have to be a very wide range on. You need playmakers. You need the fighters, the scrappy ones. You need the scorers. You need the defense. That's the thing. You need it all. And that's what Brooks was looking for. He needed all those different types of players to develop the best team possible.
Yeah. And so Jim tells him about how he's playing for his mother because his mother recently died. We see this subplot about him and his mother had died recently. So he's playing for his mother, and she used to pick him up and take him to games and stuff. He could have already went in the NHL. He had a signing bonus and the whole 9 yards, but he decided to come out for the hockey Olympics instead of taking the money. He could have taken the easy route, gone to the NHL, but he decided to try this. So
got to play for your country and represent.
Yeah. So Herb asks if he is committed to the team. Jim says, "I'm here, aren't I?" So that tells you everything you need to know about Jim Craig.
Yep.
So the doc and the assistant coach say they are fighting their own Cold War between Boston and Minnesota. So, if you're watching this movie, if you watch this movie, you know what's going on as far as that aspect. So that having Noah Emmerich and the doctor talk about that is just basically voicing it out on the screen with the characters. All right. So Patty asks if Herb can pick up son at hockey practice. She can't be in 2 places at once. Herb says they had a talk. She says he never asked her. She says he's chasing after something. He didn't get something he never got after they're going to keep doing this every 4 years. Okay, basically what you said a little while ago, he was on the hockey team, Olympic hockey team, and he was the last guy cut off the team. He was replaced by another player, and then they go on and win the Olympics in 1960. So she asked, "Oh, are you going to do this every 4 years? Is this going to be some kind of a thing with you? You're going to keep trying to get your gold medal every 4 years, and you're just going to forget about your family and your wife and so forth?" And so that really hit home for Herb Brooks. That kind of touched a nerve with him, you know?
Oh yeah. Because that's the thing too. Like you have to put your like. I mean, for myself, like I grew up playing hockey my entire life. Like that was like the only thing I looked forward to, and that was the thing I lived and breathed for. But sometimes, in a sense, too, you have to take a like a step back and look at reality and see what else, what are you doing? What's affecting everyone else in a sense too. And I think he starts to realize that too. That I do have a family and a life outside of all this, but I do need to accomplish this goal for myself and for my team.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see here. Herb looking at old photos of himself. Herb says ever since he stopped playing, he wanted to coach the Olympic team, and this is the only way he knows how to do it. Which a great coach, you got to put everything you have into being a coach. If you're a great coach, I've been a coach of football and basketball. And if you're going to be a coach, you have got to put everything you have into it, because if you half-ass being a coach, then your team's going to half-ass, and you're not going to win.
Yeah, nope. I'm a hockey coach as well, and I coach like elite girls club team. So it's all young girls that are. I went from 10 and under to 12 and under and 14 and under. But it's a club team, and if you don't put the effort in, why do the players have to put the effort in if you're not willing to? So that's the biggest thing too. I think a lot of people need to realize when it comes to coaching, in a sense, that if you're gonna you have to put forth the effort to make everyone else put forth the effort.
Absolutely. So ask Patty if she can be with him on this. It's not worth doing without her on his side. So he realizes in that moment that he still needs his wife on his side. Herb, I can't promise we will be the best team at Lake Placid, but we will be the best conditioned team. See, this is going back to he's back at practice after the conversation the previous night with Patty. So I just wanted to make sure that's clear there.
I would say, and I love that line, by the way, because I used to like in high school hockey, I won a state championship. Like we were one of the best high school hockey teams where I played, Fontbonne Academy. We went 3 years in a row to the state championship and won one. But I played lacrosse and we were not the best team. But my coach used to always say, we may not be the best team on the field, but we will be the most conditioned. And that definitely comes into play here. So
yeah, he's doing a lot of sprints. I call them sprints in basketball. It's going from one line to the next line.
Yeah, the suicides.
You consume suicides, yeah, basketball. So it's basically the same concept with hockey. You just go from the blue line back to the next line, and so forth and so forth. So it's suicides basically on a hockey rink instead of a basketball court. They end up coining a phrase with this one specific group of guys that turn out to be pretty good, and they're called the Coneheads. And if we know who the Coneheads are a group of guys on the team, but they're based on a skit from Saturday Night Live. And then, he brings them in, he starts talking to him, and he realizes how smart these guys are. They have an acumen. They have a pretty good hockey acumen. So that's how they got the name, the Coneheads. So I thought that was pretty funny.
Fits them pretty well, I think, too.
Yeah. And, it tells you where this story takes place, the Coneheads. If you know anything about Saturday Night Live, this is back in the 70s and 80s. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it's a kind of a little piece of 80s nostalgia.
Yeah, that's why I love this movie, too, because it has, like, the costume design and everything. It brings you back to that decade. Like, you feel like when you're watching the movie, you feel like you're in the 70s and the early 80s watching this, and like I said, the costume design, the whole atmosphere of the film, even like the soundtrack in a sense, it brings you back to that place.
Yeah, I love period piece, but I love period piece sports movies as well.
Oh, yeah, same.
So Herb looks like we're taking a line of Coneheads to Europe. I love that. That was a great line. It looks like we're taking a line of Coneheads to Europe. They're in Oslo, Norway, 5 months before the Olympics. Teams talking about, okay, this is a coach, whether you're a football coach or a basketball coach, or in this case, a hockey coach, where your players, instead of watching the court, watching what's going on the court or the field or the rink, they're watching the babes in the audience, or watching the cheerleaders, or watching the girls in the crowd that's over there staring at them, or they want to look good in a football uniform or whatever, vice versa. And he's staring down at these guys. They don't even realize it. And they're talking about the girl 5 rows up on the left and 3 rows up on the right and all this stuff. And like, Herb's not having this.
Oh, not one bit. That man is one serious coach when it came to that. And he kind of comes into place right after what the punishment they get from all of that. So
yeah. So team making, talking about women in the crowd instead of watching the team play on the ice. Herb making team do sprints. You call them suicides. I put down here sprints. So suicides is probably
don't matter.
After the game. Herb, think you can win on talent alone. Gentlemen, you don't have enough talent. When you put on that jersey, you represent a hell of a lot more than yourself. The name on the front of the jersey is more important than the one on the back. Keep going. They end up keep going after the rink manager shuts the lights off, and they're still doing suicide.
That's honestly, that's like one of my, obviously besides them went like the end and such, that is probably one of my favorite lines that you play for the team you play for the name on the front, not on the back. For me, that was like one of the strongest, like most powerful lines. Because I mean, to this day, everyone uses that line. I mean, I'm part of the Schmodown, which is a movie trivia league, and that's like a big thing that we represent in the league is that we play for our faction. Obviously, we play for ourselves too, but our number one goal is to win for our team. And I think that's what he's trying to show them is that you have to play as a team and you have to win as a team. You guys are the 20 guys. You guys are one.
Yeah.
20 hearts, 1 beat, man. That's all I got to say.
No, you're 100% right. So these guys have been doing this for so long. They're over there vomiting. They're exhausted on the ice. Doc and the doctor pleads with him to stop. Finally, Mike Eruzione speaks up, says he plays for the United States. After all this time, finally they stop because that's what Herb wants to hear. Because those introductions that they were doing before, how they were saying their name and where they're from and who they play for, he didn't want to hear where they were.
Yeah.
He wanted them to say, no, you're playing for the United States of America.
Exactly.
Not BU, Minnesota, South Dakota, wherever. No, you are playing for the United States of America. And finally,
and honestly, that's probably like my favorite part of the movie is when they come to realize that we are one, like we're a team. And I mean, I get so teary. I watched this movie the other night to prep for this, and literally, like that line, like it gets to me every time. Like,
yeah, I mean, that moment is the moment that you start to say to yourself, as a person watching the movie, this is where these guys are going to start coming together. This is the team. This is where this could actually happen. So we're back into Minnesota again. The plane they were using hit a moose. Patty worried about the moose. They're on the plane and they hit a moose, and Patty's on the phone with Herb, and she's worried about the moose and not the moose is fine. It just ran off. Another funny moment. Moose. When are you going to hear a plane?
That's what I like about this movie. There's some icebreakers in there just to cut the edge off a little bit, so it's not so intense. Like we got some funny moments in there.
Yeah, that was one of the funny ones. You're absolutely right. So then we get the Russia beat the NHL All-Stars 6-0. Who the hell did they play earlier in the movie? I thought they played the NHL All-Stars earlier in the movie.
I thought they did too. They think they did.
I don't know. Maybe they played them twice, for all I know. So the Russians are 42 games they've played and 42 wins. They have not lost. The Russians have not lost. It doesn't matter what game they play, who they play, they win. So they know they're going to win, and so do their opponents. I love that line because the team, the Russians, the Soviets, I say the Russians, it's the Soviet Union at the time. But
yeah, I know what you mean.
It's just, but they know they're going to win, but their opponents know they're going to win. So that tells you how much they get in the head of their own opponents, and the opponents are scared. They know they're going to lose before they even play the game.
Yeah, that was like the big thing of it too, that everyone was just already giving them the benefit of the doubt when it's just like, you still got to go out there though and play. But I mean, obviously when you're playing against a team like that, it is so intimidating because you're just like, well, we already know the outcome of this one, but
Yeah. All right, and this is where his game really starts to come into picture of what he's trying to do as a coach and a team to try to defend against the Russians. You don't defend them; you attack them. You shove their game back in their face.
mm-hmm.
So if you kind of kowtow down to them and their strength and their muscle and everything that they're doing to you, then you're not going to have an advantage on them. The only way you have an advantage is you got to take what they give you and then go faster and keep going and go past what they're trying to do. And that's the only way you can beat them because they intimidate everybody they play. So they have okay, this is, once again, Herb, unrelenting practice and conditioning once again. I mean, these guys are going crazy. So turns out that there was this whole political thing that montage at the beginning also played into some decisions because there was an Iran-Contra thing going on. There's some different things going on. And the United States are talking about boycotting the Olympics over in Europe.
Yeah.
And then the Russians were like, well, if the United States boycotts our Olympics in Moscow, then we're gonna boycott their Olympics. But it comes to terms where basically it's about, hey, we're better than you. We're going to show you we're better than you, and we'll come over there and play because
I would say come to our turf, exactly.
Yeah, we're going to show the world that we're still the best in the world. It doesn't matter what's going on in the White House or in the Kremlin or whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So they end up playing in New York City at Madison Square Garden in 3 days, and very interesting here. Herb brings in a new player, a young guy in college, and of course the guys don't like that because they've been working their backsides off the entire time, and here comes this new guy in here. Like, who the heck is this guy? You know, and like, wait a minute here, this ain't right. You know, so the new guy comes in, and the guys aren't happy. So then we find out what you brought up earlier about Herb being on the 1960 team and being cut, while then the team goes on and wins the gold medal. So this is the exact same scenario. He brings in a guy that could possibly replace one of the guys that have been there the entire time. And if they go back, if they end up doing good and they could win the gold or silver or bronze or whatever, those guys would be pretty pissed off that this guy comes in last minute and replaces them.
Yeah, and that was the crazy thing because I'm pretty sure it was the goaltender that they replaced, correct?
Yeah, that's not yet though. I don't think that's yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
scratch that. I think I was pre-recording.
Yep. So hold on here.
Oh.
So here we go.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry, I just unplugged my camera by mistake.
Oh, okay.
Why is this not working for me?
Yeah, and I lost my place too in my notes.
Sorry about that. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I just have to unplug my mic.
Yeah, can you hear me? I can't hear you. Yeah. All right. Say something.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I got you now.
Sorry, I had to unplug my mic because good old Matt to die within 5 seconds.
Yeah. All right. So basically, so Carter might boycott the Olympics, which we just talked about. Moscow Games. Maybe the Russians will not come to America. Herb. Okay. So Herb mad at Rizzo for hot scoring more. Okay. Not score. Okay. One of the players is he brought on the team for a reason. He brought him in there because he's a scorer and he's not scoring. So he's mad at him. Basically telling him, hey, I brought this other kid in because, you know, if you keep playing this way, you're out of here. This for Rizzo. or Russo or whatever the kid's name
It's a
is.
good, definitely was a good way to put him in check too, just to show like if you're not going to play your best, then you're out of here. So
And the guy gets really mad and starts yelling at Herb and everything. And then Herb, basically, just is like, yeah, that's the way to fire these guys up. So players has to have a meeting with Herb before leaving on the bus. Says it's not fair. He brought a new player this far into everything they have done. This is a family. Basically, they're saying that the players that are there are already a family. They shouldn't be bringing in a new guy. So then we're at a Christmas party. The players give the coaches gifts. They give Coach Craig a whistle, obviously, as a playoff on when he was having to blow the whistle for when they were doing those sprints. And then I gave the coach a whip because of how he's been cracking the whip and everything. So that was a kind of funny moment at the Christmas party. But Coach Brooks, he's like not much of a social guy. He comes to the party, but then he leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get to hear about Jimmy Carter's speech about the country. Then Herb gets home and then sees that there's an envelope there waiting for him and the star. The kids left the star for Herb to put on the Christmas tree, basically trying to say, even though you weren't here for all this, we still left you something to do for the Christmas tree. You still have family back home. Remember that.
Exactly. And that's like I love like most about the film too, is that they really do become one and like as a family in a sense. And like they start to look at Coach as like Papa Bear. Like he's the man that is taking care of them at the end of the day and shaping them into the men and players that they need to be.
But he also has 2 kids and a wife at home.
Yeah. No, yep. Well, exactly. So I feel like that was like they were doing that for him just because like you have a family and such like that, and we were like they respect that. So
yeah. All right. So Coach calls Ralph into his office and cuts him, which you alluded to a little while ago. That Ralph, the backup goalie, gets cut for the new guy. And it's sad. It's kind of sad that happens. So rules say they have to be down to 20 players for the Olympics. Russia's still coming to the United States to play game in 3 days before opening ceremony. So this is an interesting scenario here because this is kind of a strategic thing for Herb Brooks to play the Russians. I think he wants to kind of get a feel of who they are, what kind of team they are, even though he's watched film on them and he showed his team film on them and they've kind of done all these different scenarios dealing with the Soviets and the Russians. He thinks it's better to play them 3 days before the Olympics, which a lot of people will be like, I don't know if that's a good idea.
Yeah, because I mean, in a sense too, is like you don't want to show your talent away, but at the same time though, he needed to see like what he was up against, and I think the players themselves needed to see what they were up against, to see what they had to prove to be able to make it. And I mean, obviously, as we all know, it doesn't go in their favor because what was the score, like 10-3? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you nailed it, 10-3. I got it.
Yeah, like so at the end of the night, I mean, it didn't work out in their favor, but it showed the U.S. team like what they had to do.
Yeah,
what they needed to work on in a sense, and how they're gonna make this happen.
Absolutely. Sometimes you have to fail to realize how you can succeed, and that's kind of what he was doing there by playing the Russians 3 days before the Olympics. And one of the things I like is you sometimes see these signs in the crowd when you're kind of panning through the crowd while we're watching it, and one of them is like, "Soviets, get the puck out of here." I use that in my everyday lineage, like getting off work in the morning, like I gotta get the puck out of here.
No, it's so funny when you like zoom in and actually like look at some of like the little like Easter eggs that are left hanging around and stuff in the film. It's just like real life scenarios and takeaways that we use in our everyday life still. So
yeah, absolutely. So just like we just talked about, Soviets beat the United States 10-3 in practice game. Jack O'Callahan has injured knee, might not be able to play. Well, he got, Jack is a big mouth. He got into the face a couple. So one of the things you got to realize about the Soviets is that's the last thing they want to see you do. You start talking, you start chirping, boy, they will make you pay.
Oh, yeah.
And they made Jack O'Callahan pay big time. Because,
and that's what they wanted too. They were like, keep chirping at us because we'll just come back at you. And look what happened there is that one of us got hurt instead. And that's exactly what they wanted. Talk your trash and play a game. But
yep. So Herb tells Jim Craig he may pull him. This is after the Russians practice game. Herb tells Jim Craig he may pull him because he's not playing good. Craig gets upset at Herb, thinks he's mad about not taking the test. So the test comes full circle. He thinks it's about the test. Herb tells him he's in the net for game 1. So eventually, that's the kind of stuff Herb wanted. He wanted to see some fight out of Jim Craig. Like the test was just a piece of it.
Yeah, it was a piece of the puzzle. It was a piece of the test to see if he would actually be able to pass or not. And that's what he wanted. He wanted fire and passion from his players. And he's starting to actually get it now.
Yeah, he is. And then Jack goes in the training room and tells, Coach Craig, I should say, tells Jack that he's keeping him on the team even though he can't play for a week. And then, of course, Jack is, he's happy. He's super happy. But he knows that he dodged a bullet there, being with that leg injury, that he could have been easily.
Oh yeah,
they could have brought somebody else to play for him, So he got lucky there. So now we're finally at the Olympics in Lake Placid, New York, in 1980, and the United States is playing Sweden. So Herb gets mad at the team, throws a table across the room. Guy starts yelling at player with bruised thigh, gets really mad. Okay, one of the guys has a bruised thigh. Now, look, you're involved in hockey. I've been involved in football, in basketball. A bruise on your thigh can be very painful. But
oh yeah, especially in hockey. Yeah,
it's not something you can't play with. It just feels like at the moment it really hurts bad. But if you put some ice on it, wrap it up, you can play football. You can play, and basketball is a little tougher, but hockey, because you got pads on hockey, you got pads on football, you got pads on.
Yeah, like we like to say, rub some dirt and you'll be good to go. But I will say in hockey too, like a lot of where the muscle comes in is the core and like your legs and stuff. So obviously that's what you need the most. But I mean, when you're a hockey player, you suck it up, and that's what they do. So
yeah, it's adrenaline too. You should have the adrenaline to where you could play through a bruised thigh, and then get some ice and kind of wrap it up later on and take care of it. But so the guy had a bruised thigh, really. And so Herb gets mad at him and throws the table, and then he gets the guy fired up, and the guy's like, "Oh, I can play! Oh, I'll play!" All this stuff. It's like, and then he's, "Hey, you think he wants to play now?" He starts walking away. You think I got him fired up now?
Well, and that's what I love about it too, because like, man, if I was playing in the Olympics, if they chopped off my arm, I'd still be like, I'm good to go. Just tape a little something on there for me, and I'll play with an extra stick if I have to. Like I would do whatever it had to. And the fact that the coach was able to make that come out, like that fire come out of his players, they just lit a fire under their asses and they were good to go. So
yeah. So they end up scoring the game. The game is scored. So they end up having a tie game. So they weren't. That's not going to hurt them overall in the standings, because a tie, they still get points for a tie, and because it was a point system where each win and tie or loss, you don't get points or whatever. So just as kind of explaining that. So then the U.S. ends up going off to beat the Czechs 7-3, the third best team in the world. Then the next game they play Norway, beat them 5-1. And Herb's at the press conference. I love the press conferences. This is one of the things I like about this guy. He's at the press conference, nondescript at the press conference. Oh, can we talk to the players? No, we're not all about single players. We're all about the team. Tell the guys in the press corps, no, you're not going to get single players to talk to you. You're going to talk to me.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to give you anything.
Can't reveal any secrets,
Yeah.
And that's what I loved about it. Like, it was all about the sport and the team in a sense. It wasn't making making a star out of one of them or having the coach be the star. They were there to play and win. And that's all they wanted to do. They didn't care about asking the questions or anything about that. We wanted to bring home that gold to America. So
Yeah. So the U.S. ends up playing Romania, beat them 7-2. Then they play West Germany, beat them 4-2. Herb not at press conference. He's with his family at the ice skating rink. So Coach Craig is at the press conference, but Herb is at a different ice rink with his kids while they're just skating around the ice rink, and his wife's sitting there with him, hammering home that just because he's the coach of this team doesn't mean he doesn't know that he understands his wife and his kids are a priority for him.
And that's what I love about this film too, because it shows both sides of it. Like, especially like, I mean, I grew up playing hockey, so I mean, I've said that 10 times, but like that's what happens. Like the team becomes like your second family, but you always have your first family that you come home to at the end of the day. And it's nice that they're able to show and depict that in this film, that even though the players are his family, he has his number one core and his support system at home. And the fact that they show that little scene of him with his wife at the ice rink, like watching the kids skate and stuff, like it hits home. It shows that he's a real man. He's not just a coach.
That's it. So he talks to the team and tells them about how he got a telegram in the mail from a lady from Texas saying, beat those commie bastards. You can see how important this is to the country. You know, a lady from Texas is sending a mail saying, beat those commie bastards. So that's important. It brings home the gravity of the situation. If it hasn't already been brought to the forefront of this film. And then he tells his team how they don't match up with the Russians. You know, he understands that they're still don't match up with the Russians, but he picked these guys and these particular players for a specific reason. And the reason is going to start showing here pretty soon. So then he goes to Jack and tells Jack he's playing, which Jack, of course, is happy about that because, you know, he thought he was going to be out. He was going to be on the team, but he wasn't going to play. So he's happy about that. Now I've coached. We've been talking about this. This is kind of like a broken record for you and me. I've coached football, basketball. When you're in a big game, if your guys are out there hooping and hollering and having a good old time before a big game, then their minds aren't in the right place.
Exactly.
Teams that are quiet and don't say anything and have their head into what they're supposed to be doing, then you know that they are there for what they're there for. And that's what I like about this scene, because the team's just quiet. No talking, no noise, nothing.
They're getting in the headspace. And I think that's like so important, especially before like any big game or anything you're doing in life. Like you need to get into that right headspace to get your game face on and get focused.
Yeah. And that's what they were doing before the Soviets game, the Russian-Soviets game. So I really respect that a lot. So Coach Brooks, before the game speech, this is a big one. You might have seen this in a lot of the trailers or some of the – I think this was nominated for some awards, and you might have seen this. The great moment.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say I think it won like the ESPN like sports film award.
Yeah,
definitely for this line.
I thought Kurt Russell got nominated for Golden Globe or something too, or might have won.
He might have.
I'm not sure. I can't remember. But great moments are born from great opportunity. 10-time Russians will win out of 9. That means 9 times out of 10, the Russians will win. Not tonight, though. Tonight, we are the greatest hockey team in the world. You were all born to be hockey players. This is our time. Their time is over. This is your time. So go out there and take it. Wow.
That honestly, like, and I will say this like for the rest of my life. That's my favorite quote, like favorite line from any movie. That whole little speech right there, I think is one of the most like powerful lines like ever spoken. And the fact that it's like real just brings all the emotion and like the feels to it in a sense, because you can feel that energy and feel the passion in the coach's voice and in the players when they're listening to it in a sense. Like, I mean, every time I hear that quote, I want to go out there and just put my skates on real quick, like,
Yeah.
and go shoot some pucks. It brings all the vibes back for anything that you do. When you hear that, it's so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're at the game, the USA versus Russia semifinal game. The Soviets take a lead 1-0 in the first period. The United States tied up. Jim Craig making a lot of saves, which is big. He's starting to step up, but then the Soviets end up knocking him down, and then they scored easy gimme goal once they knock him down, which is kind of a cheap shot if you ask me. But
Yeah,
that's how they play though. This is how they're dirty.
I was gonna say the Soviets like those cheap shots. So
Yeah. So then Mark Johnson, who's been a hero in the past with some big time goals, and I think he's on the Coneheads line, I believe.
I think he is. Yeah.
Yeah, scores the tying game before the end of the period. There's like 1 second to go in the second period, and he ties the game up. All right, if anybody knows anything about hockey, you have this where you cross this line and you can take a player off and put a player on.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't put a player on before that, or it's too many men on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's able to take a guy off, jump a guy on as they're going on to the fast break.
That's all I gotta say is great line change right there. So
yeah. And they've done it they do it a few times in these Olympics, and they score goals off of it. So that's using your players to your advantage, using the speed, which is why he put these guys on the team in the first place. So they
like he said, we're not going to be the best team out there, but we're going to be the most conditioned, and that's where that comes into effect right there.
Absolutely, 100%. Then once again, pop culture things that I love about this movie, that they tell you where you are in when this takes place, and Mean Joe Green Coca-Cola commercial. We didn't have to put this in there.
Yeah.
Put it in there because they know it's an inspirational commercial. It's one of the most inspirational commercials ever, really. Mean Joe Green throwing the kid his jersey, hey, have a Coke, I don't know if you remember that commercial.
Oh, I do.
So I had to put that in my notes. I love that because it's just, that gives you the feels. That brings the feels. It has nothing to do with the movie, but it's when you see it, you're like, yeah, there you go. I'm not even a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, but I still appreciate that.
Oh yeah, no, same, 100%.
So Jim Craig gets hit hard and is down, allowing the Soviets to score. Jim gets back up. He's okay. So the third period about to start. They're in 3-2. The Soviets lead. So I talked about that Jim Craig moment a little too soon. I actually did. Now because it's
because it is 3-2 and then it becomes 4-3. Yeah, with 10 minutes left.
So so Herb says they have come from behind in every game in the tournament and they can do it again. This team can beat these guys. Basically, giving them kind of a pep talk on the bench. Then he brings in the Coneheads. Mark Johnson scores again. The Coneheads come up big once again. Mark Johnson. So the score's 3-3. Then not very far past that, Michael Ruzioni, the captain, the leader, scores to make the game 4-3 with 10 minutes left in the game. Can you feel it? Guys? Oh my God. This has never happened to the Soviets. They've never come this close to losing before.
Like we said earlier, they went 42 games straight without losing a game.
They haven't even trailed.
Yeah. Imagine just getting even just close to that accomplishment. And then the fact that we were able to do that, but we still had 10 minutes left in the game. So obviously you're just all right, this is where defense comes into effect right now. So
yeah. And earlier, there's a reason why I put Al Michaels in the cast list and as playing himself. In my opinion, Paige, I'm a big sports fan. You know that. I'm a Boston Red Sox fan, Patriots, Celtics, Bruins. but I'm also a fan of all kinds of other sports and various forms of announcements and announcing Sports Center and so forth.
Mhm.
This to me is the greatest call in sports history.
Oh yeah.
You can argue it all day you want. You're going to be wrong. I don't care who you are. You're going to be wrong. This is the greatest call in sports history. And I'm going to say it right now. I'm just going to go through this whole call right now, and I'm going to let you comment on it real quick. Al Michaels call. Do you believe in miracles? Yes. The greatest sports call ever. All right. Say what you're going to say.
Oh man, no, it just gives you the feels because like for him in a sense, like that's like my Jack Edwards who calls like the Bruins games in a sense.
Oh, yeah.
So like it gives you all the feels, and that's where like this whole film is based around. Like, do you believe in miracles? Because that's what just happened on that. That's what happened on the ice that night, and it was crazy. Like, I mean, we still have a little bit more of like the film to go because well, not really, but they go on to win, beating Finland 4-2. So it's just like, oh man, it's just when you hear that, like it just gets you so riled up and like you feel the emotion, like you feel the intensity of it all. It's just
It couldn't be. I mean, the words he chose. Do you believe in miracles? Question mark. Then yes. 3 exclamation marks.
Mhm.
I mean, you couldn't put a sentence together that means any more than those words right there. And that's why, to me, it's the greatest call in sports history. And of course, Al Michaels goes on to have this long career of Monday Night Football and now Sunday Night Football. But for me, he will always be remembered as the guy that made that call during the 1980 Olympics. I was 6 years old when I watched that, and I will never forget it to this day. So the Soviet coach doesn't know what to do, says Herb. So he's looking over, and the guy's like, this guy, dude, he's never been in this situation.
Yeah,
he's losing. He doesn't know what to do.
He's definitely shitting bricks. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. So Herb, and then we look over. Herb and the coach from the Soviet team give each other glancing looks, basically a respectful look. Like, a lot of teams like they go out at halftime, you shake hands. But these guys, they looked over at each other and they gave each other a glancing look of respect.
All you need is the nod.
All you needed to know that respect for what he just did, to how he was able to coach that team to beat that team. So that to me was someone who's involved in coaching, that was a big moment. So 2 days later, the USA go on to defeat Finland to be the gold medal champions, coming from behind again. They were behind in that game as well. And Herb, this is him narrating some of this stuff. Kurt Russell narrating as Herb Brooks. He says the greatest moment for him was just being there. Being there during that moment. Just being there. So this is more than just a game. A group of remarkable young men gave the country something again to believe in, which, that telegram from the lady in Texas, beat those commie bastards, that tells you that America needed something like this to believe in, that we are a great country, that we can overcome the odds and do something great. And what we've been doing for hundreds of years in this country. And it just took a hockey game in Lake Placid, New York versus the Soviet Union to bring that home.
Exactly. I mean, that's what makes you feel so American, and just like have that like pride in a sense too, because like it's crazy. Like that's a big thing. Like sports are really big here, and a hockey game just kind of brought the U.S. together in a sense, which is like crazy to think of.
Yeah, it really did. It really did. And in 1980, when it was really, coming off the 70s and coming into the 80s, it was kind of, you don't know where this next decade is going to go. 80s turned out to be a good decade for the country. And maybe this is one of the starting moments of
I think it was. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. So turns out that Herb died shortly after principal photography was finished on this film. So he never got to see the finished product or any of the kind of awards buzz that was around it, but or go to the premiere or any of that kind of stuff, which kind of is sad, because this is basically the Herb Brooks story. Yeah, was it the story of this Olympic team? but it's from the perspective of her.
It's the homage to him in a sense, because he's the one that made this happen. So honestly, if it wasn't for Herb Brooks, they would have never won. Like this was like he created this team and he made them what they were.
Yeah. And in the credits, I just wanted to say this last bit before. In the credits, they name all the players. And if you look at all their bios in the credits, these guys are all players. They all made successful careers of themselves. They're all like businessmen, just coaches. I mean, it's just like wow, they're motivational speakers. It's like, holy crap, these guys. Big time.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy that that tournament. I mean, it's not a tournament; it's the Olympics. It changed their lives for the better at the end. Like Herb Brooks made them the players / men that they became.
Yeah, and that really brought this whole thing full circle when you're reading those little bios of each one of these guys and the types of people that they became after this and are today. And it's like, wow, what this did to them and what this made them become was amazing. And that's what you just said. But Paige, what I always like to do and how I always end Bleacher Features is, what was it about this film that made you say, hey, I want to talk about this film on your show? And then what is it about this film that, obviously this is something that happened 40 years ago. The movie came out about 25 years ago, 15 years ago, I should say.
15.
But what do you think is it about this movie that it'll stand up for decades, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road, that people keep coming back to this film and realizing how great of a sports movie it is?
I mean, for myself alone, like I already said this, but like I grew up playing hockey. Like hockey was like my number one passion. Like that was what I lived for, was playing ice hockey. And the fact, like when I was younger, I played in the Can-Am tournament up in Lake Placid. So like I remember like going to Lake Placid and like this is what me and my team watched on the way up there, was Miracle, like the film. So it was just like, it holds like such a special place in my heart, because when I got to skate on the ice that the U.S. American hockey team won the 1980 Olympics on, that experience Herb Brooks and all those players and stuff like that. So that just like, it really hits home for me in a sense. And I mean, just all the powerful moments that like come from the film that happen in real life. Like this is, like I said earlier, this is one of the few sports films that is actually depicted like real life. Like
very realistic.
99% of the stuff that happened in the film is what happened in real life during that time. And I think that's what it's like makes it feel so surreal. And just like the quotes you get out of it, like like great moments are born from great opportunities. And it's like everything. And do you believe in miracles? Like just those things, like to me, just hit home so much. And I think, especially if anyone like is a huge hockey fan, like this is the one film you have to watch. If you like any sports, if you like passion in sports and a true like comeback like underdog story, that's the thing. It's an underdog story, and I think that's what makes it feel so much better, because we were a team that had no shot or no chance at all winning, and the fact that, and at first they all hated each other. And there was nothing but rivalries. I mean, I'm a Boston girl myself, and you're a Boston guy. So like, we still have these rivals with these Western college teams and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, when they knew that, and the coach brought them together, that you have to play as one. Like 20 hearts. I'll keep saying it. Like 20 hearts, one beat. Like they knew that they had to become a family, and the only way that they were going to win wasn't by a certain player. It was for them to do it together. And I think that's the thing for me, is I love team sports, and I think that's what's depicted so much of this in the film. Oh man, this is like the sports movie I could watch any day of the week and have, like, if it's on, like my eyes are glued to the screen at the end of the day. Like this is the like sports film I will forever watch.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, there's a reason why I created this show, is my love of movies and my love of sports. and a friend of mine recommended. He says, if you're going to do a podcast or a show, do something about something that you love. Don't do something that everybody else is doing. Do something about something you love. And I've been watching movies since I was 6 years old, and I've been watching sports since I was 6 years old, since I'm conscious enough to realize what. And I saw this moment live on the 1980 Olympics when I was 6 years old. And I remember that call from Al Michaels, and it stuck with me all these years later. So when this movie came out, I had high hopes, and boy, when you have high hopes, it usually doesn't live up to your hopes, but this time it did. And Gavin O'Connor, to me, it just was a revelation with this movie, because the hockey.
Oh my God, yeah.
The hockey was great. I mean, how he filmed every.
The cinematography, the angles, the editing that they use in this film, and majority of it, those are all real hockey players that they use, while filming and stuff, and that's what made it so much more surreal. And I mean, let's not forget about Kurt Russell, man.
He's amazing.
What a legend, and the fact that he gets to play Herb Brooks, he does a friggin' phenomenal job. Is all I mean. He's an eye catcher. He's just wicked good in that.
Yeah.
And to me, when I think of Kurt Russell, I think of Herb Brooks. That's the one film that, I mean, everyone loves Overboard and stuff like that, and obviously
I will tell you,
all his other films, but this is when I think of Kurt Russell, this is the film I think of.
Well, I'll tell you, if you look at photos of Herb Brooks, I think they did.
Yeah. They're not twins. Let's just say that. But when I think of Kurt Russell, though, I think of this. I think of him in this role.
A lot of people do when it comes to sports films. They think of the person who's playing the person in the movie, like Jackie Robinson. They think of Chadwick Boseman, but or whatever, these various different actors that are playing these people, But or I think Lou Gehrig. I think of Gary Cooper. I mean that's. But yeah, so I'm a huge hockey fan, but living in Florida, I don't pay attention to it as much. But when it comes to the movies, I can always go back and I can rewatch these movies and really love them. And I'll tell you what, this movie is 15 years old. The story is 40 years old. It is going to stand up because it, like you said, it was depicted in a way that really told the true story of what was going on. It wasn't sugar coated. It wasn't like, oh, they changed this or they changed that. They actually did the stuff the way it was meant to be seen. And a lot of times scripts are taken from books, and who knows if this was taken from a book or what it was taken from. But whoever job, Guggenheim and the other guy that wrote the script, because they really got to the heart of what this story.
Oh yeah, this is screenplay, and the way that the characters bring those words to the screen, man. Oh, you feel the intensity, and you feel it all. That's why this film will forever hold up, because the way that it's just told and the true story aspect of it all. Yeah, it's like a part of history. If I was a history teacher, I would show my kids this film about it. So
if you're going back to the 80s, you want to talk about the 80s, history in the 1980s. This will be a great movie to show about one of the major events in the 1980s, and the Cold War between the 70s and 60s and then into the 80s. This is a major event. But Paige, I really appreciate you coming on with me, and I really appreciate you choosing Miracle to talk about, because I had a blast talking about this film with you. Where can you be found?
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, I just want to say thank you so much, because I think the platform that you created is so unique, and I love that you brought two things that you love together, sports and films, and better way to do that, to talk sports movies. So no, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. And you guys can check me out on the Schmodown. It is a movie trivia, the biggest YouTube movie trivia in the world. If you like movies, trivia, and entertainment, then definitely go check it out. And you guys can check me out on Instagram and on Twitter at Front Page News 9. And I also run my own movie blog titled Feature Flicks on Instagram. Flicks without the C, just so you guys know. There we post movie news and reviews and all that fun jazz. And starting May 7th, every Friday, I will be speaking. I'm on a show called the The Mad Batch, which will be talking about the new Star Wars show, The Bad Batch. So definitely tune in, guys, if you love Star Wars. And thank you, man, for having me on, because it was such an honor to talk Miracle with you. Anytime I get to talk hockey and movies, it hits close to home, and it's always in my heart. So the fact that I got to do both together with you is awesome. So thank you so much, man.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate. Yeah, you're fantastic, and you know, I love it when the guest really has that excitement about the movie we're talking about. That really brings the energy to the episode. My good buddy Sandy the Sandman Robinson and I did Mystery Alaska a couple of years ago.
Oh,
So,
that must have been a fun one with Russell Crowe to talk about.
yeah. So you can find me at Dan Skip Bound on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. Also, I'm a film critic in the Orlando, Florida area. I write for a website called disappointmentmedia.com. Don't at me. I didn't come up with the name. I just write for them. I do a little bit of everything from. I do new movie reviews. I do awards coverage. I do retrospective, like if an actor had died, I review a movie of theirs and we discuss their career. I do anniversaries. Like I actually did a review of Miracle, 40th anniversary review of Miracle. Well, based on the story last year. So you can go back and look for that review if you're interested in that.
I know I will.
But also I do, if I'm not writing for disappointmentmedia.com, I write on my own blog called From the Fourth Row at wordpress.com. So for Paige and myself, good night, everybody.